On this edition of the Cowboy Up podcast, meet Deborah Plum. Deborah is the co-founder of BaseCamp for Veterans, which was founded by lifelong friends Deborah and Theo Windish, who each have experience in both the private and public sectors. Their desire to create something sustainable that truly gives back to the generations of people, combined with a palatable awareness of the noticeable decline in comprehensive veteran services, particularly ones that include families as part of the process, led them to conclude that the veteran community was where they needed to focus their energy. You're going to love what their mission is, and you're going to love what Deborah has to say. Good morning, Russell. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm a new RVer, sort of new. I guess not that new because we went to Montana and that's how we lived because there was no housing for us. But anyway, we went on a little trip to one of our new favorite places, southern New Mexico. Well, we like all of New Mexico. It was fun. So we got away and now we're working. We're a week back. And we're caught up, and the weather's pretty nice. And
well, the weather's amazing. You went to southern New Mexico. I was born in southern New Mexico. I was born in Alamogordo, White Sands Missile Monument.
Wow. We weren't near there this time.
Well, people tell me that because I was born there explains a lot of my issues. And I think they're probably right.
Why? They think you're a E.T. or something?
Well, either that or I just was exposed to too much radiation. I'm not sure which.
That's it. I hadn't thought. Okay.
There is that possibility.
Well, there's this. I'm going to give it a little pitch because Laura found it. She's great at finding interesting places. And it's called City of Rocks. And it's southeast of Silver City. And you drive through this ordinary desert, nothing spectacular, and you turn this corner, and all of a sudden, they call it, some people, euphemistic or sort of unofficially call it Stonehenge on crack. And there's all these semi-sized boulders that are standing up, and it's some sort of lava that cooled really quickly, and you park in them, and it is literally surreal.
Well, if it was, they call it the City of Rocks. There are a lot of rocks there. I'm surprised that you got Reagan out of there because she loves rocks.
She loves City of Rocks, and she climbs up on these things. And so anyway, it was great. But we're back a week now. So Deborah Plum, I've known since she was 3 years old. Her parents are some of my favorite people ever.
Me too.
Hers too. And they're originally from New York. Deborah came out and never, after a while, after becoming an attorney practicing in New York, she came out to Tucson to visit, never went back.
That is amazing. And Deborah is involved with an organization that every time I'm here, I see them. They've got these BaseCamp shirts on, and it took me a little while before I mustered up the courage to say, hey, what is BaseCamp all about? And once I learned, I wanted to know more, and now Deborah has promised to get me deeper into this organization, which I appreciate. With no further ado, good morning, Deborah. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so appreciative of you taking the time because your time is, you're like Russell. You don't just sit around. You've got things going on.
I try to. I like to keep myself busy. I like my day job, and then I love working for BaseCamp for Veterans, Inc., which I co-founded with Theo Windish, who is actually moving to Arizona also. So BCI has brought us both out west.
Well, Tucson has that effect on people.
You know, my dad's one of his often repeated sayings, and he was a clever, funny guy. You never met him, right?
I did. I absolutely met him.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I was young. I have memories. I was a little scared of him.
Yeah. Oh, really? Most people are afraid of my mother for reason, and less so my dad. But he would always say, we lose more guests to them moving out here than anything else. And that was true. I mean, there's a lot of White Stallion people that live out here.
I can believe that. So tell us what BaseCamp for Veterans is all about, why you founded it, that sort of thing. Not too much of a broad and overreaching question right there.
No, not at all. So just so we don't have to do the tongue twister, BaseCamp for Veterans, Inc., we call it BCI for short. It actually that acronym was given to us by the veterans. So just when I say that, that's what it stands for. BCI is a nonprofit organization, and our goal is to provide equine experiences. We call it equine therapy, equine assisted learning, but it's really about the experiences, and the therapy sort of comes in through those experiences, and we provide them for veterans and their family members. I think that's the key. And I think as we've grown as an organization, we've realized that our incorporation of family members into veteran services, it's what makes us really unique. We do a mix of styles of experiences, groundwork, riding, and throughout all of that, the goal really is to help veterans become more aware of themselves, of their communication, of maybe something that's going on between them and their family members that they didn't know before. And we also include, as I said, their family members in some of those activities, sometimes together, sometimes separately, but the goal really is to open them up and to have them thinking a little differently, because we find that horses really do open channels of communication and thought process in a way that other therapies really don't.
And I have to agree with you. And these people, when you come out and you talk to these veterans, I think the families, like you said, they're forgotten.
They are. They really are. And I don't think it's intentional. I think we focus so much on the experience the veterans have, their traumas, their challenges, how hard it is, I can only imagine, returning into civilian life. And I think we forget that while they were serving or when they come back from service, it could be either one, family members come in and out of their lives, they also went through their own journey and their own challenges, missing the person, keeping the home running while they're gone, or meeting this person after service and dealing with the impact that service had on them. I think also to treat a veteran without treating sort of the whole person, meaning their surroundings, it does lose, it misses out on some key components. And I think that their spouses, their kids, their parents, anyone they call family is a really integral part in their ability to reintegrate successfully. So while we actually started by focusing on what made us unique as being that we combined equine experiences with wild horses and domesticated horses, which we still do, I think as we've grown, we've realized that our inclusion of the family members is really what makes us the most unique as far as equine services for veterans.
And I know it makes a difference to the family because I've had the opportunity to briefly talk to some of the family members that I'm going to ask you in the next several weeks to get me a little bit deeper with some of the veterans and their families, if you'd be kind enough to do that.
I would love to. Our veterans really love talking about their experience. I think one of the best things, they're the best feedback we can get, and they're very honest about their experiences. We've actually changed a lot of our programming because of their feedback and because of the family's feedback. I mean, Russell would know this from the beginning. We started this as a pilot program. It wasn't a nonprofit. We weren't fully on White Stallion Ranch property. We split our time between them and another property for the wild horse component. And as we grew, we realized that we were sort of missing out by the transition from different locations and not having the family members and the veterans on the same site all the time. We were kind of missing something that's really magical about White Stallion and why we love working out of here. It's really the camp in the base camp, or the base, whichever you want to call it, but it really is the home base for it all. And having this property be their home base, I think the veterans feel welcomed and they feel like they have a second home for themselves. And that's especially true even if they don't have family members.
And this is what I hear from these folks when they come back here. They kind of feel like they're almost going home. And that's a comforting thing. And I don't mean to step. Russell's probably not going to be able to get a word in edgewise here. I worry about that. But I am just so interested in what you do. Because I think that what a lot of these folks are finding out is what a truly special place White Stallion Ranch is. And I'm not just saying that. I mean, the more I know about this place, my wife doesn't want to go anyplace else. She just loves it here. We moved to this side of town because she gets to drive by the mountains that Russell's mom refers to when she says, as long as you'll move me from Denver to Tucson, as long as I don't have to leave these mountains, life will be pretty good.
It's funny, a tangent of the fact that, as Russell said, he's actually known me since I was 2.5, just small correction. But that was the first time my family brought my brother. It was me, my brother, my mom, my dad, and my grandparents at some point. And we just fell in love with the place. Even as kids, they would ask, do you want to go to Disney World? We wanted to come here.
Wow.
And it still is our favorite place. And I think it was actually a little scary to share that as a business concept, to bring in people to sort of, I don't mean invade in a bad way, but suddenly this place wasn't just my safe space and my place to ride or my place to just kind of feel free and kind of disconnect. But I'm actually really proud of the fact that I can see the impact that it's having on the lives of these amazing, nation's heroes, for lack of a better term. And I think it's incredible to see that it has that impact in such a profound way. I mean, for me, it was a vacation spot. It's not that it wasn't really special and profoundly life-changing, because here I am, but to watch some of these kids that come through the program, and they go through a lot as the kids of veterans, and they experience a very different narrative as far as their relationship with their parents. It's wonderful to see that the place itself brings them together and they connect. I think, yes, our programming absolutely enhances that experience, because we do give them specialized and targeted activities to do that's focused on teamwork or communication or breathing and figuring out where your heart rate is. What are you thinking? When the horses can sense that. And we talk a lot about that kind of sensory work. But at the same time, I don't know that those activities or modalities would have the same power if we didn't have a place like this for them to all congregate and really decompress.
And, I love all the credit you guys are giving the ranch, and we think it's pretty... And a lot of it is the mountains and the location and the way everything sort of evolved over time. But it's a lot about the horses, and Deborah's a lawyer, but she, obviously business savvy and put this thing together. Also now is a horse person and can do a lot of that horse aspect. But co-founder Theo, what is his?
So he's a behavioral analyst, but he's a licensed therapist. So he started actually as an art therapist and now is licensed as an equine therapist.
What does it mean, a behavioral analyst?
Well, I'll let him speak more when we bring him on, because I'm sure he would love to join for a little bit more in-depth about the therapy side. But effectively, he works with therapists to analyze the behavior of patients and sort of piece together what is happening sort of for kids if they can't vocalize it or explain it. He's a specialist in observing them and sort of piecing together what might be going on internally or what might actually be the cause of the behavior, as opposed to just talking through it.
So he consults with the people actually doing the therapy.
Yes. Yes, now he does.
Especially with kids.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually pretty fascinating. How did you get involved? Because you obviously have a very different skill set than your co-founder. And I think if you both have the same skill set, one of you wouldn't be necessary. But the fact that you've got such different skill sets, how does that impact what it is you deliver to the veterans?
So as a first step, we actually met in a totally different time of life. We were both actually working in the art world. I was working for a gallery pop-up exhibit and sort of the person that was running the whole art fair, and he was working for a particular gallery. We like to tell the story about how I can't cut a straight line, and he met me because he was so frustrated watching me try, and he cut the straight line for me. So we started to just be friends because we found each other funny and had a lot of just common sense of humor and sarcasm, and we both came from families that we felt were really community oriented in some way. I think that was really quick. We were quick to learn that both of us wanted to do something that wasn't just about making money, and it wasn't just about using a skill from college. It was about finding something deeper. And so when we both left the art world and went on our own paths, he went and became a therapist. I wanted to be a lawyer, yes, because I do like money, I'm not going to lie, but also because I found myself in a situation where I felt I could give back and learn a lot more about the business side of things as a tax lawyer, which is what I do. So I felt that I could really use a lot of my interest in nonprofits and just businesses if I had a real deep knowledge of some of the things that drive us, which actually are taxes, for another podcast. And when we decided that we wanted to come up with something to do together, veterans was almost immediately just the answer. Theo comes from a long line of veterans. I'm a dual citizen with Israel, so I have family members who served over there because it's mandatory, and I regret not pushing my parents to let me. My grandfather, who was on my dad's side, was one of my absolute favorite humans, and he served, and we talked a lot about national service, and my grandfather on my mom's side also served, and I think we just had very, very close relationships with the people in our lives who did serve, and some of those relationships were challenging, and we felt as family members of those people, we understood what it was like to be in that role, and how could we give back to those people. So we just landed on it, and actually there were no horses involved at first. It was sort of by happenstance that I think I was mentioning to Theo that I was doing some equine volunteer work actually in New York with kids with disabilities, and then we talked about horses and what they could offer, and came out here sort of as a research trip and settled on horses, and we were kind of off to the races.
Well, in a different life, years ago, I used to work with a group in California called Project Ride, and it was riding instruction designed for education. We were dealing with children, typically under the age of about 15, that all had special needs, autism, CP, whatever the case may be, and getting them on a horse to ride and watching the change in these kids in a real short period of time was just nothing short of magical. Hi, Tina, if you're hearing this. It was nothing short of magical. I ended up cutting a couple of videos for them. It was so much fun, and I can only imagine the benefits that you're getting and the wins that you get from a lot of these veterans and their families.
I think it's also interesting. We often talk about the way that horses help kids that are, I think, neurodivergent or sort of have sensory complications or challenged in their even holding their body movements, so to speak. And Theo is really well versed in this because it's his area as a therapist. He works regularly with kids with autism and Down syndrome, and he really understands it. And one of the things that we both talked about is, as we started reading about it, is how much that might not be the exact same thing going on with a veteran or with someone who's a victim of domestic violence, but they can have similar patterns of behavior or similar issues that are presented, even if they don't know it, that their sort of trauma brain, so to speak, is causing them to respond or to move in a certain way. And I think that's where horses can be incredibly telling for them about that.
Well, we've reached the point where we need to take a break. And, I've said it 10,000 times on this, the horses have maybe not central. They have a very important role that is only matched possibly by dogs in human life. Well, Stephen, it's September. We always say it, right? How did it get to be? But it's September, and so it's that shift in emphasis in the dude ranch business. The ranch is up north, as we say it, from down here in Arizona, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, etc. Some great folks in California and Oregon. Those ranches are getting ready. They're starting to figure out where to put the antifreeze in the pipes and close down a lot of them, not all of them. Some of them are at an elevation they can operate all year round. And some of them have really great winter, Christmas, and Thanksgiving type experiences. But the emphasis clearly shifts to the south, Arizona being, of course, primary for winter. And so our season kicks in, and the DRA is the group that collects this 90 plus dude ranches in the American West. They go through a 2-year vetting process, and they do your work for you. And you can go to duderanch.org, duderanch.org, and find 90 plus of the very best dude ranches in the American West, and head out to one last minute if you want to get up there into those pine trees and do some fly fishing or winter escapes in Arizona.
Yeah, and it's the nice thing about going on the Dude Ranch Association website is you look at the different ranches that are on there, and it's something for everybody.
Oh, absolutely. Super upscale to just really getting out and fixing fence and chasing cows. It's for, and everything in between. Well, we're talking about horses, and obviously it's a big part. We'll come back. I'm sure it just can't help but circle back to the horses. But you've done, Deborah, something nobody's done, and that my brother Michael, who anybody tries to keep up with him when he's getting from point A to point B on the ranch, better be fit and better be wearing their good shoes, because he walks fast with purpose and is always on the march. And one thing he hates above all other things, I mean, there's a few other things we won't go into today, but he hates meetings. He'd just rather poke his own eyes out. And any kind of meetings, and somehow you've gotten him on your board. I saw a picture of him on some sort of social media that I don't participate in, but someone showed me, And he's a big part of this, and you've got him to be on your board and really take a role. And that's, he's obviously capable of doing any of these things anytime, but it's just not his area of interest.
It was surprising to me, having known him also for quite a while, but I think the biggest reason that it happened mostly was because of the veterans. I think there was one event that we were running, it was right, actually, it was the day my grandfather died. It was not planned that way, of course, but who was also very good friends with Michael. And I think that was a part of why Michael was invested at all in the first place. But we had this event that was to raise some money, and it was in my first year living out here, and no one showed up. It was actually the worst event I've ever put together, and I've put together a lot of events for different organizations. The only people that really showed were already involved. So, you can imagine there's a step and repeat, there's drinks, and you're thinking this is going to attract some new life. But even with no one new, these veterans stood up to talk about their experience and got in front of a mic and were just so open and vulnerable. And I think we were all surprised. I think Michael was stunned, because I think up until then we had run 2 programs. It looked nice. They had a good time. They went home. And I think to see and hear the impact, I would imagine from what he said to the veterans that was really kind of a change. And actually, I shouldn't say no one, because Ed Ackerley, if you're out there, hi, was there. And that thankfully, that was the one person new, and he's been very involved and very active in BCI as well. But Michael's been great to our veterans, a great support. He's sat in on some board meetings and really has been instrumental in making sure that the veterans continue to feel at home here. So we're very grateful for that.
So it's you and Theo, and for those White Stallion people that know, Carol Bachman has a role, but you also have a lady brings in. Talk about her.
Yes. So we've expanded also our network. Tamara Claus has been with us since the beginning. She is the licensed equine therapist that we started working with, and she runs really very hands-on the therapy sessions. Theo oversees and sort of guides and explains our goals as an organization, but Tamara's really on the ground with the veterans in the round pen, working with them and observing really what their behaviors are like and how the horses respond to that, because that's the key. I think she is a horsewoman herself, so she's got a lot of experience understanding what a horse's response would be. And then as a therapist and someone who works in a variety of communities, really understands how people's responses are and what they might be, what their body language might be setting without them knowing. So she collaborates with us. We're very grateful she stayed on since 2019. And then we have Randy Helm, who just joined, and we're very grateful for him. He is our Mustang program coordinator, we call him, because we always want to bring in some wild horses that have a little bit of edge to them and maybe even a fear factor. But he doesn't just work with the Mustangs. He's really just an incredible horse trainer and collaborates with Tamara. So there's always sort of a horse advocate or a horse person, so to speak, in the ring to teach about training and groundwork. And then Tamara brings in the real therapy side of things.
Well, I mean, you've really assembled an all-star cast. I don't overstate that. Randy Helms, what's the name of his book?
Which one? I think there's more than one.
Oh, well,
Lessons from Horses is the one that I've read.
Right, and he's a preacher, and he ran the Mustang program at Florence Prison.
Yes.
Which, for those of you who don't know, and hopefully you don't know, Florence is our maximum security prison here in Arizona. So these weren't shoplifters and drunk drivers. These were some folks who had some rough history. They had to apply, and then they broke these right off the range Mustangs, which of course they were changing the horse's life too, because it gave them freedom and an opportunity to get out of the holding pens and have a future. It's an important part of the Mustang issue in America. But Randy is the real deal, and Alan Day, my other cohort in podcasting, and Randy are really good friends, and Alan, if Alan respects somebody in the horse world, you just mark it down as real. So yeah, you've got the A-team working there.
What really struck me and Theo, I'm sure I'll speak on his behalf, that when we first met Randy, it was just to pick his brain. We had said, we want to start this program. We came out to Florence Prison. We watched some of his work with them. We saw how these inmates gravitated towards him and what he did with these horses, which is incredible in itself. And then when we followed up after getting some of our legs under us and actually becoming a program and talking to him, he was excited and remembered us, which we were so grateful to be remembered by someone like that. But he also is just incredible as far as what he does with the people. I mean, you can be a wonderful horse person and an expert and be not so great with people, in my experience. And he really masters both. A lot of the inmates that were there and working with him are still in touch with him. They're in the horse industry. Some are farriers, some are trainers. They come out to see him and have observed our program. And we watch our veterans gravitate towards him as well, which has just been really wonderful to see.
Now, is that, as you said in our first segment, you used the terminology and it really struck me, finding something deeper. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think that inevitably one of the things we run into with veterans is that they don't want necessarily to say that they need the help. They want to say that they're fine and they want to help other veterans. I've never seen a community so willing to help other people and so giving and also say we don't need it. And one of the things that I think works with equine therapy is that it doesn't feel like therapy. You're not sitting in a chair. You're not talking about your feelings, and that's fine. That's all well and good. You're not being pushed to necessarily vocalize what's going on, but you are pushed and you do find things deeper without knowing it. And I think it really helps them grow and understand how to communicate. And the end result, it's not just about making good horse people. It's actually not at all about making good horse people, though it's a nice thing that they like it, is that they start to communicate better with each other. And the community that they create becomes a much deeper part of their lives, I think, than they had anticipated. Probably more than we had anticipated. The only reason we have ongoing clinics every month out of White Stallion is because White Stallion lets us, but also because the veterans asked for it. They wanted more.
Okay. So in the world that you live in, tell me what a win looks like for both the veteran and their family. What does that actually look like?
I think the biggest win that we've seen is it's twofold. For the veteran, it's seeing them acknowledge openly, and they often do by the end of the week. So we run that week-long program before they can come to any clinics. They acknowledge and really do verbalize what they came here with, what they struggled with, what in their family was challenging, and what they want to work on. And that's the first win, right, to acknowledge it. And sometimes what's incredible is that the family member does the same thing. They think they came here for the veteran, and then they realize they came for themselves, which is immensely powerful to me. And then the second, or the sort of the biggest win, is when they keep coming back and they acknowledge that the week-long program isn't the end of it. You know, that you can't fix everything in a week. No one can. And I think when they keep coming back and we watch them, just how they communicate with each other and how much they, even if they don't get involved in our program, that's not always the goal. They're involved in other things as a team. And I think watching the family members be more of a team and not just one person leaning on the other and the other always expected to be the support, however that looks, I think that's our biggest win. And I think that's where Theo and I, you had asked about how our skill sets complement each other. You know, Theo is incredibly talented at almost predicting what someone's working on, you know, when they come in, and sort of seeing what level they can get at within a week. And he's really good at sort of steering the ship about what types of activities work. And then I'm more the logistics, fundraising, get out there and make sure that the wheels keep turning person. So working together on that is really, really incredible. I mean, not to say, as I also mentioned, I love riding. It's my own passion, but when I'm at BCI, I'm a little bit more on the logistics end of things. So I'm grateful for the team that works with me.
Well, I'm sitting here, and I will freely admit this. I'm getting emotional when you're talking about the result and the wins that the veteran and their family get. I had the same thing when I was working with Project Ride. You'd listen to the parents, because a lot of the kids can't communicate that, but the parents talk about the change in themselves and the change in their child. And I kind of think that's kind of what you're talking about, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's the same goes for the kids. I mean, some of the kids come to us really shut down, you know, and I don't necessarily know what's going on at home, and I don't always know that it's directly related to military service, but it usually has some link. And they'll just be open and excited, and horses really, yes, we do a great job bringing that out. We're all a good team working with them. But when we watch these kids go from nervous and not even engaged. Like, not every kid wants to even be on a horse, which is shocking to me because once I was on one, I never wanted to get off. But they are suddenly the ones creating their teams for their BCI team penning, or deciding that they're going to lead the brushing that we do and washing. And they get so invested. They want to braid their horse's hair, and they want to say hi to them. When they come back, they remember their horse and want to go give them a cookie. I mean, those are little things, but to see them open up and actually say they want to do that is a huge step. And to feel comfortable doing that without their parents. I mean, they run around this property like I did, and probably was more annoying than anything else. But one of the things we love about this property is that they feel at home, and they feel this level of confidence as they keep coming back and able to just be a part of their BCI community without necessarily latching onto their parents or being afraid.
And they run around this property, and you watch them, and you notice that very few, if any of them on any given day, have an electronic device with them that they're texting everyone with.
You know, I will say I give the veteran community a lot of credit, because I've watched them generally, broad brushing is always dangerous, generally be much less prone to allow their kids to be attached to a device. I have seen that as a whole.
Good for them.
But it is, 2024, and they do it too. But coming out here, they don't even want to. I mean, we had one kid, all he wanted to do was be inside on his phone the first couple of days. And then it was like, I don't think he remembered he had one. So I love it. I mean, that's what I felt. My parents watched with me. I think it's...
I as a person who's not directly involved in the program, or I'm not a veteran myself, my father was in World War II, and to his sadness, he was the best gunnery officer they had, and so he was retained in the U.S. to train gunnery officers. He finally got a combat assignment, and they dropped a bomb on Hiroshima, so he didn't go. So we're not a veteran family in that regard, but you look at the greatest generation, the Great War, World War II, those folks came back heroes for obvious and very good reason. And Korea I know less about, but I was just missed Vietnam. And I remember my dad saying, if Vietnam continues, we're going to get you in the Coast Guard because you aren't going over there. and here's this, pro-military, patriotic supporter of America, and he's telling his own son, we're not going. So anyway, those folks are all heroes, too, that went to Vietnam. Absolute, no less. In fact, I would almost argue more so than prior wars, because they went despite the ambiguity and despite the opposition, and then they come back to being spit on and being mistreated. And thank God, I think this country learned that lesson. And the folks that have been in the wars since have come home, I think, fundamentally as heroes. I think you're a real outlier if you don't support the military, whether you support what they were doing or not. And so what I'm getting to is we've made this very good circle back toward celebrating our veterans, but we do forget the families, because and so that's what you're not doing. You're not forgetting them. And I get it. They weren't running around in the jungles or the deserts or watching their friends die, but they were worried about their husbands or their wives or their kids. I mean, we're worried about their parents. And I think there's a sound argument that the families are the biggest victims.
I would agree with you, and I cannot imagine what it's like to be a 2-year-old who grew up with a father that you really didn't know for the first year and a half of your life, or grew up with a mother that you didn't know for the first year and a half of your life. I can't imagine what the long-term consequences and ramifications are of that, and I don't really even want to know.
Or a bigger kid who's sitting there wondering if all this horror they're seeing is happening to one of their parents.
Exactly, and I just thank God an organization like this exists, because it just pulls some people out of where they were and takes them to where they need to be. So thank you so much for that. It's genuinely appreciated, and I'm sure it's not always easy.
So I'm gonna tell a story on Deborah, and so if you're a guest at our rodeo, you can check out for a moment. But so she bought a horse from my wife, and we didn't really want to sell the horse, so it shows that Laura really likes Deborah. So we have an employee, I'm not going to name names here because we're talking about some illegal activity. And so we have an employee works at our ranch at Rancho Del Oso, which is on the Mexican border, and she calls up Laura one day and says, hey, I found a horse in Mexico I want to buy for myself, and there's another one there, and it looks like a nice horse. Maybe you'd like to buy that one. And Laura said, well, are they bringing it over, this way and that? And she goes, oh, no, that's expensive. And we used to buy a lot of horses from Mexico that came through the legal process, and it's gotten, as the government does, both sides, any government, it's gotten expensive, and they just sort of double the price of the horse. So this employee said, no, we're just going to sneak him around the edge of the wall, end of the wall. Got a big fancy wall, but it does end.
Yes, it does.
And she says, so they're $1,000 a horse, which was, is a very good price for nice horses. And Mexican horses are, as a whole, really good horses, well-broke, well-trained. Those guys are real experts down there. So Laura says, well, I really can't be buying these, a horse illegally like that, but I'm interested in the horse. If you want to buy it, I'll buy it from you. And so she goes, okay, great. It'll be a better deal if we buy two. So sure enough, they bring these two horses around and it's pretty steep, by the way. So they bring it around the end of the wall, and they hand off the two horses, and it was all preset. $1,000, $2,000 for the two horses, and then $200 each for the cartel fee for allowing them to cross the border illegally.
Okay.
And nothing crosses the border illegally unless the cartel gets paid. That's a fact.
Okay.
So it's really a deal. I mean, if you want to come over illegally as a human, it's about $5,000. So a horse is only $200. So we paid $1,200, bring the horse home, and because Laura has the sense of humor she does, she names the horse Cartel. And Deborah falls in love with this very nice, rapid learning Palomino horse that we would have been very happy to keep. And she finally wore Laura down, and now Deborah's training him to do all sorts of things, including barrel racing.
I love it. You really do like horses, don't you?
I do, but I'm just, again, I want to put out there, I would never have bought a horse if I didn't have the Trues here to help me with it, because when I learn all the things that I don't know, I'm amazed that anyone does it by themselves.
It's amazing, isn't it?
And just to be clear, Deborah is 2 parties away from the illegal transaction.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I should have added
So I
that.
want to be sure that...
Might be good friends with the person that's 1 party away.
I like it.
She's 2 parties away from...
Plausible deniability is what we call
it's
that.
It's plausible, it's
She's
legal.
She's a lawyer. I think she
everything.
knows there's a place for that in the law, right?
Always.
So I was going to talk about her parents, but we didn't get there. But we want to finish up with BCI. Some of our guests have really stepped up and really helped. It isn't free what she does, and there's a lot of great people involved, and lots of stuff goes on. There's social media. It's the world today. These are things that as much as people volunteer and work hard, there are funds needed, and I think Deborah wants to, keep it going, but Theo and Deborah want to grow it, make it available to more people. Is that true?
Yes, absolutely. And I should say, Russell's correct. It's not free. We do pay the people that are part of our team, other than ourselves. Theo and I continue to do this labor of love, but we want to make sure that it stays free for the veterans and their family members. But that does not mean that the ability to provide that is free. So yes, any donation support, always welcome. We'd love to expand it. We've thought about taking a visit to some other ranches. Maybe some that might be willing to help us do some other programming. So any support from the community is always appreciated. And of course, any veterans who are interested, we'd love to hear from you.
Right. And True Ranch Collection would be happy. We've got ranches in a few different spots. And how did they find out about it?
So you can visit our website, which is www.bcampinc.com, or you can find us on Facebook. And actually, you can search my name pretty easily now, Deborah Plum. Unfortunately, I've had to open my social media world because of BCI, but that's okay.
And Deborah's spelled normally,
yes.
And Plum is?
Plum, like the fruit.
There's no B on there. And do the website again, because it's not BCI.
No, it is normal www, but it's B and then camp, Inc.com.
BCAMP.com.
That's correct.
Now, you said you want to come back when your partner gets moved here, your co-founder gets moved here to Tucson.
We'd love to. I'd love to have him on. I'm so excited that he's going to be down here running this program from a distance. Has its challenges, so we're really excited to be in the same place again.
Great. And remember, I'm going to hold you to that, introducing me around, because I really want to know more about your organization.
He'd be great at it, and we'd love to.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on so much, Deborah.
Thank you for having me.
Russell, thank you.
It was great. You know, with the change of season, October 1st seems to be the unofficial kickoff of the 2024-2025 year, and we have got so many events going on, some aimed at children, some aimed at Thanksgiving, some aimed at Christmas, a lot of events aimed at women and veterans. Just go to the website, whitestallion.com. Do a search. There are so many things we've got going on here. The weather is amazing. I wish you were all here right now. It's just going to be a great, great season, and we hope you're a part of it. whitestallion.com.
Well, that's a wrap, folks, and thank you for joining us for the Cowboy Up podcast coming your way from Tucson, Arizona. Hopefully you'll be out at the White Stallion Ranch someday, and right when we're doing the program, you might want to stop in and say hi. Who knows? We might even put you on the program. That would be fun, wouldn't it? Yes, the Cowboy Up Podcast at gmail.com. The Cowboy Up Podcast at gmail.com. That's the way to reach out to us. We'd love to hear your comments. If you have a little bit of suggestion of how we might help you or do it better, we always welcome that. Perhaps you know of someone who would be a good guest to be on the program. Maybe that someone might even be you. Well, raise your hand and audition, and let's see what happens. We wish you all the best, and sometimes the good cowboy music reminds us not only of cowboy times and good times, but also perhaps of some memories. And one of our favorite guys, Jim Jones and his team, his posse, put together a little song about Colorado calling to take us out.
I saw her timeless beauty through the prism of my youth. Lofty peaks where eagles soared, a fundamental truth. A vision of forever, a voice that spoke of home. A promise of safe haven carved in wood and stone. And I heard Colorado calling. Colorado calling. But the young are full of flight and fancy, always moving on. Something shiny caught my eye and I was up and gone. Years go by, the pages turn, you wander and you roam. And from the past you hear a voice calling you home, and now I hear Colorado calling. I hear Colorado calling. Like some old stalwart sentinel, I hear the Rockies call. A stronghold of peace and truth, standing proud and tall. So if it's time to draw a line, it's here I'll stand or fall. 'Cause I hear Colorado calling. I hear Colorado calling. heart is torn between the old west and the new. It's time to make a change, but I don't know what I should do. The world is shifting swiftly, there is no solid ground. Shadows of uncertainty, a strident siren sound, but I hear Colorado calling. I hear Colorado calling. There is no sanctuary when the wolf is at your door. But truth and love and honor don't seem to matter anymore. Age and wisdom show me all the things I can't control. But I can choose the final place to defend my heart and soul. And now I hear Colorado calling. I hear Colorado calling. Like some old stalwart sentinel, I hear the Rockies call. A stronghold of peace and truth, standing proud and tall. So if it's time to draw a line, it's here I'll stand or fall. 'Cause I hear Colorado calling. I hear Colorado calling. Yes, I hear Colorado calling.